Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for another deep dive. You know how it is, Friday afternoon rolls around and everyone's buzzing about their weekend plans. Well, today we're taking a look at a fictional podcast script. It actually suggests that those little chats, those weekend plan conversations, are way more powerful than they seem. We're going to get into a whole workplace story and some tips on how to make those conversations even more meaningful.
I'm really excited to dive into this one. This script really caught my eye, too.
Yeah, it's got this whole thing about lavender ice cream that just totally hooked me. You'll see what I mean?
Oh, yeah, the ice cream is key. It's all about those little details, those sensory experiences. They really bring a story to life and make you feel connected to it.
Okay, so let's set the scene. It's Friday afternoon at this company called Heart & Co., and the weekend energy is definitely in the air. We meet Maya. She's a project manager and always up for an adventure. And then there's Alex. He's the graphic designer and more of a homebody. You know the type. Their first interaction at the coffee station.
Yeah.
Well, let's just say they wouldn't exactly win any most likely to be friends awards.
Right. It's that classic contrast. The script plays with those character archetypes a bit.
Yeah.
You've got Maya, who's practically vibrating with excitement about her road trip to a lavender farm. And then there's Alex planning a quiet weekend in. You can almost picture them, can't you?
Totally.
Their whole weekend energy just radiating off of them.
And then, boom, she drops the lavender ice cream bomb. Maya starts describing this amazing-sounding lavender ice cream from the farm's cafe, and Alex, he perks right up.
That's the turning point, isn't it? That one specific detail, that sensory experience.
It's like a bridge between their totally different weekend styles.
It's funny. I was just reading a study about how describing sensory details like taste or smell, it can actually trigger mirror neurons in the listener. It's like their brain is almost experiencing it right alongside you,
Wow.
which creates this sense of shared experience, even though they're not actually there.
So even though Alex isn't going on the lavender farm road trip, Maya's description brings him a little closer to it.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I never realized how much neuroscience is happening in these everyday conversations.
It is fascinating.
But it makes sense, right? We've all felt that, haven't we? How someone's enthusiasm can be totally contagious.
Absolutely. When Maya shares her excitement with those vivid details, it's like a social signal. Alex and anyone else listening in, they feel a bit of that excitement too. And that can open them up to new experiences.
I love that, the power of shared excitement.
It's pretty amazing.
All right, so we got Maya buzzing about lavender ice cream. We've got Alex maybe feeling a little more adventurous than usual. Where does the story go from here?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting.
So we've got Maya and her lavender ice cream, and we've got Alex feeling a little more adventurous. What happens next?
Well, remember Sophie, the HR manager? She overhears Maya and Alex talking, and she jumps right in.
Oh, yeah, Sophie. What's she up to this weekend?
Hiking. She's got big plans for a weekend hike. And suddenly the conversation shifts.
I bet.
It's not just Maya and Alex anymore. It's this whole group thing.
Right.
They're all bouncing ideas off each other,
Yeah?
Maybe even inspiring each other to try something new.
Like a chain reaction of weekend inspiration.
Exactly. And that's where we start to see those ripple effects that the script talks about. A little later on, Alex ends up doing something completely unexpected.
Oh, like what?
He goes to a film festival.
A film festival?
Yeah, one he'd been putting off for ages.
Wow.
It's like Maya's energy, her willingness to try something new, it rubbed off on him a little.
I love that. So wait, it all started with lavender ice cream, and now we've got Alex at a film festival.
It's those little things, those seemingly insignificant conversations. You never know where they might lead.
Okay, but hold on. Is it ethical to try and influence people's behavior like that, even if it's with good intentions?
That's a great question, and it's definitely something to be mindful of. I don't think the script is advocating for manipulating people or pushing them into things they don't want to do. It's more about sharing your passions authentically, creating a space for others to maybe explore their own interests.
Right. So it's not about forcing anyone. It's more like planting a seed.
Exactly. You plant the seed, but it's up to each individual to decide what they want to grow.
I like that analogy. So the script gives us this great story, but it also offers some practical tips.
Yeah.
Tips on how to have more engaging conversations, right?
Absolutely. The first one is so simple, but so important.
What is it?
Be curious.
Be curious.
Okay. Instead of just asking, what are you doing this weekend? Try digging a little deeper.
Okay, so how do you do that?
You could ask things like, is there anything you're particularly looking forward to? Or what's the one thing you're hoping to get out of your weekend?
Oh, I see.
You're showing them you actually care about their answer.
Right, not just going through the motions of small talk.
Exactly. And that genuine interest, it makes people feel more comfortable opening up.
That makes sense.
And once they start sharing, that's when the next tip comes in.
Which is?
Encourage them to really paint a picture with their words. Remember those sensory details we talked about earlier?
The lavender ice cream?
Exactly. Those details are key.
So instead of just saying, I'm go to a concert, they might describe the band's sound, the atmosphere of the venue, maybe even what they're planning to wear.
Right. You want to feel like you're right there with them experiencing it through their senses.
I get it. It's about bringing those experiences to life.
And to keep that momentum going, the script emphasizes active listening.
Oh yeah, active listening.
It's so important.
How do you do that?
Ask follow-up questions that show you're paying attention and genuinely curious. If someone mentions a hike, maybe you ask about the trail or if they've been there before.
Right.
If it's a movie, you can ask about the genre or the director. Anything that shows you're truly engaged.
Makes sense, because nobody likes feeling like they're talking to a brick wall.
Yeah.
But honestly, sometimes those follow-up questions, they don't come naturally to me.
One thing that helps is to really try and put yourself in the other person's shoes. What might they be feeling excited about? What details might be important to their experience? If you approach the conversation with that kind of empathy, the questions will usually flow more naturally.
That's actually really helpful advice. I can definitely work on that.
And the final tip the script offers is to be open to getting inspired by the other person's plans.
Okay.
Maybe they mention a hobby you've always been curious about or an event you've never heard of. Don't be afraid to admit you're unfamiliar and ask questions. That openness is how you discover new things, maybe even get ideas for your own future weekend plans.
I love that. It's like you're giving yourself permission to step outside of your usual routine and try something new. You know, I actually had a similar experience a few months ago. A friend was telling me about this pottery class she was taking, and I was just hooked on her description of the whole process. You know, I'd never really thought of myself as an artsy person. But her enthusiasm was contagious. I ended up signing up for a beginner's workshop, and honestly, it was so much fun. I never would have discovered that if we hadn't had that conversation.
That is a perfect example of how these conversations can lead to personal growth. It's not always about these huge life changes. Sometimes it's those small discoveries, those moments when you surprise yourself by trying something new.
Right.
And it all starts with that willingness to be open to other people's experiences.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. Neuroscience, ethical considerations, practical tips. What's the one thing you hope people will take away from this deep dive?
If I had to sum it up in one sentence, I'd say don't underestimate the power of those seemingly casual conversations, especially those chats about weekend plans. They're not just about filling the silence. They're chances to connect, to inspire, to learn something new about yourself and the people around you.
That's a great point. It's a good reminder to be more present in those conversations, to really listen, ask good questions, and share our own experiences authentically.
And maybe even think about how we can use those conversations to encourage ourselves or someone else to grow a little. So I'll leave you with this. How might you consciously use those weekend plan chats to spark connection or growth in your own life?
That's a great question, something to think about as we head into the weekend. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. Remember, even the smallest conversations can have a surprisingly big impact. Who knows, maybe sharing your weekend plans will spark an unexpected adventure for you or for someone else.